Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larbi.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Where Should I Invest? My name is Sarah Larbi, and I am excited again for another great podcast. And today's guest is Lyn Lebeau, who is an active real estate investor who invests with the flipping and the buy and hold strategies. She's got over 10 years of experience and provides some great insights for us Canadian real estate investors. I hope you guys enjoy today's podcast, and if you have not yet, please leave a rating and review on Apple's podcast if that's how you listen to it with your iPhone. And if you also have any real estate investing questions or you wanted to reach out, feel free to email me, sarah@sarahlarbi.com, or send me a message using my website, which is sarahlarbi.com. All right, let's now go to the podcast. Lyn, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you now. You are in Sudbury, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in real estate investing.
Okay. So I've been investing in real estate since 2008 was my first purchase. And I currently have a total of 68 doors. I do most of my properties are, purchased like for holding. So I have done a few flips, but the majority is really to hold. So I've got, single family, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and my biggest one right now is a six-plex. So looking to getting into some bigger properties now at this point.
That's great. So a lot of people are probably wondering, wow, 68 units, how do you go from, 0 to 68? So how do you do that? How did you go that quickly? To that.
So actually, I actually closed. Okay, so I purchased my first property, and then in 2008, then my second in 2009, and I was trying to help out an old friend of mine. And anyway, so what happened is, so I purchased those two properties with the intent of giving him a job, so he'd fix them up and so on. And finally, that didn't work out too well, and we had to break our ties. And from there, in 2012, the company I was working for was on the verge of bankruptcy. And so I had to figure out how I was going to replace my six-figure income. And in Sudbury where I live, there aren't very many opportunities. And so anyways, I was kind of having to decide how I was going to do that. And finally I was driving to Timmins one day where my properties, the two first properties were located. And I thought, okay, what the heck am I thinking? Just do more of this, right? Light bulb went off and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I call it my two strategy combo, and you will refer to it as the BRRRR strategy. I had not heard of the BRRRR strategy until after I finished writing my book on real estate and picked up my next book because I didn't have time, like that whole period, I didn't have time to actually read anything. So anyways, I picked up my next book and all of a sudden reading about this BRRRR strategy and like, hey, this is my two strategy combo. So that's basically it, right? So basically, what I did was I got, so I would purchase properties that were in need of major repairs, and I took $100,000 of the bank's money because I didn't have any money of my own other than in RSPs, and if I cashed them out, I'd have to pay 50% in taxes and stuff, so that wasn't going to happen. So I had a credit line. So I'm actually got a credit line, a HELOC on my property. Of between that one and the regular one, it was about $100,000. And so I purchased I purchased property and for pretty cheap, and then I would fix it up and rent it out and finance it and then move on to the next property. So 18 properties within 12 months is what I did. So that's because I was really focused, right? It was all about how to get to my $100,000 of income to be replaced in case the company went under.
So that's interesting. Now Timmins is how many hours north of Toronto? Is it 12?
Driving? I'm going to say 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sudbury's about 4 hours, and then it's about 3.25, 3.5 from Timmins from Sudbury.
I've been there once. I think there's like a Casey's or something. There was like the one main restaurant.
Yeah,
I
there's a
remember
case.
going.
There's a few more now.
Nice. Okay, so what's a house price in Timmins roughly? Like, what did you purchase these properties for?
Yeah, so this is why I invest in Timmins, right? Because the first one I purchased, don't get me wrong, these are really good deals that I'm talking about here. So I purchased my first one for 49,000, and this one had a front house that had a rooming house with 4 units, 4 rooms, and it had a main floor with a 2-bedroom main floor and a 1-bedroom basement, and then the back house had 2 units. And so I purchased that for $49,000. It needed a little bit of work. It wasn't that bad though. It was like the amount of work, I'd say I probably put about 20,000 into it. And so all in for 69, and it was bringing in $4,500 in revenue per month.
So the cash flow was amazing from day one. And I mean,
Day
there's
one.
a lot of people in Toronto thinking, how do I afford anything? But you live in Toronto. If you want to live in Toronto, rent in Toronto, but buy somewhere where it makes sense. And it sounds like Timmins made sense for you.
Exactly. So yeah, so that was my first property. The second one I bought for $40,000, and it was a six-plex, and it rents out for probably around, about 5 grand. And, so that's pretty good. And then, so these were my first two. And then after that, so I bought those for cash, like using a credit line. And then after that, when I decided I was all in 2012 and did the 18 deals within that 12 months, so I was looking for the same types of things, right? I'm like, okay, if this worked for these two, then how can I continue to do this? And so a lot of the deals were like that. They were either vacant, they had, I don't know, I remember the one I bought it for $35,000. It was a triplex, and people had gone through the walls to get to the other units and stuff, right? So and yeah, it was a little bit crazy. So, but they were abandoned places, some of them, and then others weren't abandoned. So I had a mixture of some that were abandoned and needed work, and I would also buy those where I bought 2 4 units next to each other, and those were actually tenanted, and therefore I got the financing on it right off the get-go, and just put my 20% down versus having to rather than, because it wasn't the same strategy, right? And it was already tenanted, and it was going to be a little while before I could refinance and where I could bring up the value.
So essentially you were still burring. So the couple properties you purchased using your HELOC on what, refinancing your primary residence?
Yeah, that's what I did. So I financed my primary residence, and I got a separate line of credit for the, whatever I could get out of the bank. And so I was able to use that to do the repairs, and just use the HELOC to be able to, for the down payments.
That's good. So how did you get financing for 18 properties? Like, were you using one lender? Did you work with a mortgage broker, B lenders? Like, how did that all work out?
Okay, so in the beginning, I didn't know better. So I was already, like, my primary home was, my principal residence was with Scotiabank. And so I thought, okay, well, I have a relationship with them already, so I'm just going to go there. And so that's what I did. And people were just impressed as to how many I was able to close with Scotiabank. Like I was doing deal after deal, right? So, and they weren't putting the brakes on. And I thought, well, this is really cool. Okay, so keep going, right? Apply for the next one, until one day they did put the brakes on. And at that point, I had a few properties under contract, and they were really good deals. And I'm thinking, okay, what do I do next? And so finally, I decided to go with a mortgage broker, and he was able to actually get me, he got me 3, we closed on 3 properties with this particular mortgage broker. So he kind of was able to pull a cat out of a hat type of thing. So I'm not sure how he did his magic, but I was like, all good with that. So I did the broker, and then.
Was that still with an A lender, the broker, like a big bank, or was that a trust company?
It was actually with Radius Financial. So my mortgage, like the interest rates were still at 3%.
Okay. So, but probably, so not one of the big 5 banks. So no.
Maybe
like a B lender type of thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But I don't think it's a B lender though. I think
No?
it's, no, I don't believe so, because the B lenders were at 4% at the time. And this one here was at 3%. So I'm still thinking the mortgage brokers have access to banks that won't deal with individuals, right? They only deal with the mortgage brokers. And so it's not like it wasn't a credit union or, Caisse Populaires and stuff like that. It was, if I was coming in at 3% and the other ones, when I was dealing with Scotiabank, I was at 2.89.
Mm-hmm. Were there points that you paid up front or like a lower amortization?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So it seems like you got a good deal. I mean, it's not one of the big 5 banks, but there's definitely a lot of, this is why we work with mortgage brokers, right? Because they have access to more than just going to your branch that you're used to working with from the bank.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And then from there, I went to, then after that, I went to the credit unions. Once I got a stop on, the mortgage broker that I was dealing with, he was really, really good at first. And then I don't know if he got swamped or what happened, but then he would stop returning calls and it would take forever and stuff. And I thought, okay, well, I need to get financing and I need it now. And I went to the credit union in the area and I was able to get it through there.
Okay, awesome. So you've done this essentially controlling 100% of the assets without joint ventures. Is that correct? Or did you get a joint venture partner or two at some point?
Yes, I did end up getting some joint venture partners at some point. At first, people were asking me, well, I want in, and they're going, can I give you my money? And I'm going, why would I give you 50% when I can keep 100% of it, right? So until at one point I had so many deals on the table and the bank, well, actually it wasn't the bank, it was the credit union was supposed to actually front some money and it didn't happen for some reason or another. They said, oh, we changed our mind, we can't do it. And so I had to do the entire deal with cash. And so I was out of money to be able to do the other deals that I had already, that I had under contract. And so I thought, okay, well, 50% of something is better than 0% of nothing.
Right, exactly.
So that's when I went to the one and I said, okay, you've been wanting in for the last few years. Here's your chance and here's how it's going to work. And I explained it to him. And I did 2 deals with that individual. And then from there, I had somebody else that had also been asking for a while. So when he ran out of cash, then I went to the other fella and said, hey, okay, I've got these deals on the table. Do you want in? This would be the time. And so he got in and I did 2 deals with him. And now just more recently, I've got another partner where I've got 2 more partners where I've done a few deals.
That's awesome. Okay, so now you're going into Timmins, and we'll get back to the joint venture. I mean, I think at some point everybody's going to, need a JV to keep scaling if that's the goal.
You've got it.
But at some point, you said, okay, I'm going to go 3.5 hours away of driving, and I'm going to start a portfolio there. And you and I can't do what we do without a good team in place. And so, how did you build your team out? 3 hours, 4 hours from where you are?
Okay, so during this whole process, I was actually working in an executive position. I was working about 80 to 100 hours a week because they had put me in charge of the turnaround of the organization. And so I was going across Canada. So just to keep things into perspective, right? So this is what was happening at the time. And so I had to figure out okay, I need a team of people to be able to take care of this because I don't even live there. And I'm across Canada just traveling for work. And so anyway, so what I did is my first thing, at first I hired a property manager and she worked out for a little while, but then I don't know if she got too big too fast. It didn't, just things didn't work out. So then I was looking for a second one and I asked my real estate agent, is there a good property management company in town? And her answer was no. And I thought, okay, well, that's not going to work for me. What am I going to do now? Right.
Right.
So, and then she told me that her sister had managed the property, one of the first properties that I purchased. She had managed it for this older couple at the time. And this couple, anyway, so she had really helped them out is what she was doing. And she said her sister wasn't really happy with her work and probably would be good, anyways, she'd probably be willing to change jobs. And so I interviewed her over the phone at first, and then I went and interviewed her in Timmins, and it all worked out. So she ended up being my property manager for 5 years and worked out worked out really well. She ended up getting sick and had to leave for a bit, but she's actually been back lately doing some of my marketing and stuff like that. So she was my first employee and worked out really, really well. She learned the ropes really quickly. And so we kind of worked it out together so that we'd be learning together and so on. And at the time we were using a contractor to do all of the work. And so she would just, line up the contractor, do everything. We'd be on the phone a couple times a week, depending on what was going on, sometimes more, sometimes less. And yeah, she would just, let me know what was happening, and she did a fabulous job. So it's really about finding the right person, right? So
absolutely. It is all about your team, right? Your team can make or break the whole experience, but also, how did you find your JVs, initially? Were they friends that you knew prior? Were they people that you had met at different investor events? Like, how did that all work out?
Okay, so the first one that kept bugging me to get into the game was my brother. So that was pretty simple. And the second one, I paid for some coaching. And before I did my 18 deals in 12 months, I knew that I needed to know what I didn't know. So I paid for some coaching. And when I was at this event, I was at this 3 days boots on the ground type event. And they said, oh, you have to be on social media. I'm like, okay, I seriously do not have time for social media. I work all these hours and there's just no time for that. She says, no, you don't understand. You have to be on social media. So you got to go on Facebook. So I said, okay. So I had this old Facebook account that I hadn't opened in years. And so I opened this account and there's like 100 friend requests, right? So I'm like, okay, accept. And I'm going through the list. And then as I did that, this one fellow, he was a friend of mine in like grade 7, 8, around that time frame, like a long time ago. So anyways, so he sees me, he saw that I accepted his request. So he says, hey, what are you up to these days? So anyways, I just said, I'm not usually on Facebook, but I'm at this event or whatever, this real estate training. And they said I had to go on social media. So here I am. And he's like, oh, real estate, really? Anyway, so we had some back and forth. And he says, well, how do I get in? And so anyways, I said, well, I don't know. He says, well, can I give you my money? And I said, well, I don't need your money. Why would I do that? So anyway, so he knew then by that point, he knew about my 2 first properties, right? So, and because I had told him I was going to just kind of go full force, right, and do this. And so he says to me, well, if you ever want somebody to partner, just let me know. So that's when a few years, or whatever, not a few years, but about a year goes by, and not even, I don't know, maybe 8 months goes by. And that's when I had, 4 deals on the table that I couldn't close on. And so I brought my brother in, and then I brought this guy in. And then after that, my other brother was bugging me to get in. And so I did a couple of flips with him and, just to try to help them out, right? Because he can use some money and whatever. So I did that. And then I was at this other event in Toronto, and people ask, they always ask, like, what do you do? And so once I told them about a few of my deals, I just told them a couple of little stories about some of my deals. Like I purchased a property for $15,500, and
nice.
It's a duplex, and it had a little back house, but the back house needed to be torn down and stuff. And they're like, what? What do you mean? And so they're trying to buy in Toronto, and it's like, oh, I can close on maybe 1 or 2 deals in Toronto. If you go to Timmins, I can pay all these for cash, right? So, so as I would tell my story, people would be like, people just want to give me their money, right? And so I had this newest partner, just over about a year and a half ago, she'd been bugging me to get in. And so finally I let her in, and I've got this other fella, like I had a few people that were asking me, can I give you my money? And anyways, because they said, well, if I buy a property in Timmins, can you manage it? And my answer is no. I'm not property managing anything that I don't have a percentage of interest in, right? Because why would I?
It makes sense. Like, that's not the business that you're in. You're in the investing business, not property management.
You've got it. Yeah, that's right. So once I would answer that, they'd be like, okay, well then can I give you my money? So sometimes the answer is yes, but I've had a few that one guy wanted to give me $400,000, and I don't know, I didn't feel good about it. And so there was something that was telling me just not to do it. Don't take this guy's money. And so I didn't, right? So I do what feels right.
Yeah. And I think that's important just because there's a commitment, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, longer, to be able to communicate with your JV partner. So it is important that you guys are both on the same page and everything is worked out. How is it working with your family?
It's working out really well because the deal was it's got to be hands off. I don't want your spouses involved, and I'll give you some financial statements and just that was the deal with the two that with the family, because they really wanted in, and and I knew that they could use the money, and therefore I'm going, okay, so let's do it this way. So they've had zero issues. They trust me. I'm a CPA as well, so I don't know. So there's that.
Right. Okay.
I'm a chartered accountant.
You've obviously got, a good financial background as well. So it's not, and you have that ability to analyze and you've proven yourself. So how are you structuring the JVs? Like, are you doing a certain time frame? Like, so I'm guessing you're going to be the active partner and they're the passive partner, but maybe just walk us through, how you're structuring that for the majority of them. I'm sure there's, there could be exceptions, and then, what your exit strategy is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the way that I've got it set up is it's a 50-50 partnership, and I structure the deals. It's basically, I'm the feet on the ground, right? And the other partner has to come to the table with the cash for the closing and be able to qualify for the mortgages. So that's how I've got it structured with my newer investors, right? My newer partners. In the beginning, I hadn't really given it that much thought when my first ones came on. And so I didn't have it where they had to qualify for the mortgage. So my first few, I didn't do that, but now I do. Because I don't qualify for mortgages anymore, or it's a lot tougher. And so it's just makes more sense. So that's how I've got those structured. And what they do is they pay the property management company, like the corporation. So they're incorporated, and the corporation pays the property management company 10% to manage those properties.
So is there an exit? Like, do you guys plan to hold it for a certain time frame and then sell it, or one person buys the other person out? Like, how do you guys work that out?
Right. Okay. So I've told my partners that they can decide, like at any point in time, they can decide that they want to sell the properties. If they decide that, so it's not structured where it's, okay, it's got to be for 5 years, it's structured so that they can get out at any time that they wish. And just, by selling the properties. Now, that being said, I did have the one partner that we had purchased 3 together, and he needed some cash quickly. And I offered to just buy him out for the portion, like just the one at the price that we had paid for it, because we hadn't done any work to it yet. And so that's what I agreed upon. And so he just sold my corporation one of the properties that we had purchased. I want my joint venture partners to feel comfortable that, they can make that decision. They don't have to, they're not stuck in it for 5 years, 10 years or whatever. Right. So that's the comfort zone, that I offer them.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because everybody structures it a little bit different, right? So there's no like right way or wrong way to do JVs, but it's also really interesting because you've done quite a bit now, just to see how you set them up. Are you doing BRRRRs with these properties, and are they, are they putting down the renovation budget, and are you doing the refinance at that point in time, or are you waiting to the end? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So yes, the BRRRR strategy, or my 2-strategy combo, whichever way you want to call it. Yes, the answer is yes, we are doing those. And that's the majority of them are the BRRRR strategy. And what we're doing is, so they come up with the funds on closing, and then they pay for all of the expenses to fix up the place. And once we have them tenanted and we have we get them financed, then we pull out the cash and they get all their money back. And this way here, really, it's an infinite return for them. right? So they get all their money back. And then after that, once that's done, if there's even more cash, then we always leave a certain amount in the bank, because I don't want, there are a few times where we didn't leave enough money in the bank account with my first few partners, and we ended up running out of cash, and I felt bad. I didn't want to go to them and ask them for money. So I used my own credit lines to finance it. And it was like, okay, I'm not doing this again. Right. So, so what I ended up doing was, I'm telling them, okay, for every property, I want $5,000 in the bank account.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's going to be some CapEx costs at some point, or some maintenance that need to be, dealt with. So it definitely makes sense. So they're going to refinance. They're going to essentially get a new mortgage. So are you adding a JV agreement so that there's 50-50 after the renovations? Because essentially, if you put yourself behind the scenes on title at the beginning, you're going to have to take it off, have them refinance, and put it back. So it's like a little bit complex. So how are you working around that?
Yeah, so we've got a joint venture agreement, right? And so what I have is I'm a shareholder in the corporation, right? Because they are in corporations. So I'm a 50% shareholder of the corporation. And so I don't go on title. I don't like nothing of that. And so that's how I've got it structured, so that, I just went with some legal advice, and that's what I was told I should be doing. So
So you create a corporation with them where each of you guys are 50-50.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Rather than use your own corporation behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. My apologies. My corporation, it's not even me. It's my corporation owns 50% of the new corporation.
Okay.
And, yeah. And the partner owns the other 50%. So
then they go on title.
Yeah. Correct.
And then that agreement gets registered.
So the agreement is not registered.
Okay. Yeah. So like, because I mean, I actually don't, fully, and I know there's something where, like, if you have a JV agreement, you have to kind of register it, or you have to put it on to the property so that they can't sell it without you knowing.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I get where you're getting at now. Okay. Yeah. So I've only done it with this brand new partner, and you're right. It's something I should be thinking about, because now they would have a really hard time selling it without me knowing about it, because they don't even live close, right? This partner lives in Toronto. And
right. I mean, hopefully you trust your partner, but I'm just thinking, like, and I am not a lawyer, and I can't pretend to like know enough about this anyways, but it's always very interesting, because technically your JV partner, if you don't show that you're somehow registered in the back end, that property could be sold and gone. I mean, obviously, you have a little bit more control because you're up there, but worst comes to worst, I guess it could happen, correct?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You've got me thinking about this now, because I'm going, okay, yeah, I should probably, just even put $100 on title, like, just, an amount of $100, and this way here, if somebody goes to sell, they actually have to,
they would have, you'd be, made aware, because like you're registered on it, I think.
No, that's a very good point. Absolutely. That's, I'm after we're done this call, I'm gonna
hey, you know what, there's not a right way or a wrong way, but I think so what I would do is I would register it after the refinance, because if you have it on before and then you're doing the renovations, then you got to take it off to get the refi, and then you got to put it. So there's a lot of like legalities and like paperwork. And again, like, this is why you hire some professionals, and I've got like great lawyers that will help me throughout all of this. But that's, like, that would, to me, that would make more sense, because you want to trust the JV partner, just like they're going to trust you, and it's going to be a long-term relationship. But, like, you always have to be cautious, just like they should be cautious with you too. But it is interesting. So thanks for sharing that, because I think it's going to be really valuable for people to really understand even just like the different steps that you took to get to your 68 units, and that's incredible. And also Timmins sounds pretty good too.
No, they're not all that great, but there's, I did purchase some where the tenants were already there. So I've purchased like a property for a fourplex for $135,000, for example. So it didn't require work right away, but as soon as, the tenants leave, and then I upgrade and then, increase the rents. And then from there, I'll do the next one. Right. So but only as people leave, because some of the rents were pretty low.
Mhm.
Some people were paying like $500 and some odd dollars inclusive, and they'll use up, I don't know, electricity, because you got to remember we're in Northern Ontario, and so some of these units are it's electric heat, and so when you've got electric heat and you've got or somebody in the summertime, because even summertimes in Timmins it gets really hot as well. And so they're using their, I don't know, their AC, and they're cranking the heat, and their hydro bill is almost as much as, what they're paying in rent. And it's like, okay, seriously. But
So
yeah,
hopefully, either cash for keys or they don't stay too long and you renovate the units. I mean, it's hard in Ontario for sure to, get people out unless you're renovating, but you got to, just keep in mind that they can technically still come back at the same market rents.
exactly. So yeah, exactly. So I don't do that, right? I just hold off, and
Yeah.
so I'm able to purchase some properties for a really good, low amount. And then I just, they're still cash flowing. And so I just wait until these people leave, and then, I'll renovate then. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great.
Yeah.
So now I believe that you have a book that you've written. Can you tell us about that?
Okay. So yeah, totally. So I wrote the book, and I know everybody else won't be able to see it, but I'll show it to you right now. So it's called No Money, No Problem. Make Your First $1 million with Real Estate. The Secrets to My Millionaire Method Revealed. So I wrote this book because, I figured this stuff out, right? And I was like, okay, anybody can be successful. I went from a starving single teenage mom to where I am today. And if I can do that, there's no reason for everybody else not to be able to do it too, right? And you just have to know how to get there. And so the book is really about, there's some stories, like there's my screw ups, and there's quite a few of those, but I still managed to in turn get to my first $1 million, right? So although I was aiming at getting to my six figures, it turned into a few $1 million, and in equity and so on. So I decided to write this book so that other people can actually do the same thing. And so there's step-by-step things that I have in there. I give away free spreadsheets, so they just have to go to a certain web page and they'll be able to get my free spreadsheets. So it's all the stuff that I used to be able to do this, right? And I still use today, right? To analyze my deals and to figure out, if what is it going to cost me for this flip, and so all of those types of things. I also offer, the conditions that I put into my offers, because I want to make sure that I can actually get out of it. Because one of the big things that I do is I put in blind offers. I don't bother, like having been on the road, and not being able to get to Timmins, I had to figure out a strategy to be able to do this from a distance. So I've got the whole strategy in the book that explains how I've done it and so on. But it comes back to, like, a lot of my offers were actually all blind offers. And some of the other real estate agents were getting really frustrated with mine, because they were going, well, how did you manage to get all of these deals for your investor, right? So, but we basically, what we were doing is I would put in the offer. So as soon as I found out that, there was a new listing, I would take a peek and see, okay, is this of interest? Yes or no? If the answer was yes, I always had on my laptop the spreadsheet open so that I can actually just enter the information really quick, 30 seconds, enter the information that you've got from the details. So I would ask my real estate agent for the details that I needed to be able to put into the spreadsheet. And she'd always have it to me within minutes. And I would just enter the information, and I would put an irrevocable of 24 hours. So people had to make decisions within 24 hours. Well, nobody else got to go see these properties, right? So because they had to give 24 hours notice to the tenants to get in. So they would make a decision, and, so that's basically one of the.
That's a great strategy. So where can they buy the book?
Okay, so the book is on Amazon. So they can get the book on Amazon. There's the ebook, and there's also the paperback version. And just look up Lyn Lebeau, or look up the title of the book, make your first $1 million with real estate. Either way, so Lyn is spelled Lyn, and last name Lebeau, L-E-B as in Bob, E-A-U. And if you just punch that in on Amazon, you'll be able to find it.
Amazing. Good. So the last part of the podcast is our lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions, and everybody gets the same questions. You're going to give me the first answer that comes to mind. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. Lyn, question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book ever?
I know it's the same answer as a lot of people. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was the first book. I actually read that book when I decided I was all in. I took the book and I read it right away, and it said go to seminars. I went to seminars. I just did whatever it said. So definitely.
Perfect. That's good. You read it and you took action. Number 2, what is your favorite podcast?
Okay, so yours, totally. I love it because it's in Canada, and I love the way I just love the way you have them, and it's just no BS, and it's So and that being said, I didn't start watching podcasts until just recently when my coach said you have to be on podcasts. So I thought, okay, which podcast am I going to be on, right? So anyway, it's great.
Nice. Perfect. Question number 3. What do you do for fun when you're not doing real estate?
Okay, so really outdoorsy, just love the outdoors. I live on the lake. I'll go swimming, I'll go kayaking. But my favorite is playing with my grandkids. It's just, I'll do somersaults with them. I'll do whatever. It's just, lots of fun.
Awesome. Number 4, if you lost all of your money and your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Just pretty simple. Just redo what I just did.
Awesome. Question number 5, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend they spend that money?
First of all, if you want speed, get yourself a coach, right? So if all you've got is access to $50,000, get yourself a coach, find out what you need to know so that you can actually get that speed. Then from there, your coach will be able to show you how you can find more money and so on. I'm not saying you got to spend $50,000 for a coach. I personally spent $40,000 for right off the get-go using a line of credit to be able to pay for a coach. But I would say find yourself a coach and then see what you got left and strategize with your coach around how do I get more money to be able to do these deals.
All right. Great answer. Lyn, if my listeners wanted to reach out and know more about you, where can they go and how can they do that?
Okay. So they can email me at book@lynlebeau.com. They can look me up on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a web page I'm actually in the process of creating an online course on investing in real estate. So if you want to look into that, then you can go to lynlebeau.com. And I just saw a mouse go by.
Oh no.
I'm like, where'd that come from? So something moving in the background.
Podcast, so hopefully you can go find the mouse and get it in a little trap there.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so these are the three areas would be through email, through Facebook, and through LinkedIn.
All right, awesome. Any final last words of advice?
Don't wait. Get started now. I got started later on. I wish I had started way earlier, and because I'd be even way further ahead than I am today. So, one of the big things that people, there's fear I think is the greatest thing that stops people from investing in real estate. And fear is normal. Like, we all feel it. If you read my book, you'll see, I've got my roadside thing that I talk about, and you'll see how scared I was. But I still did it, right? You just have to, just know that the fear is going to be there and just still do it. Because if you don't, you might go 10, 15, 20 years before you actually do invest in real estate, or you might never start. And that's the worst. If I can do this, you can too, right? So just do it.
Just start. Awesome. Lyn, thanks for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great conversations.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larbi. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?